looking for an answer, we'll then take some questions. So in that period, do you find it interesting? I'm sure many actually. But I'm going to pass you a question. Thank you.
Just going to do a little bit of Tai Chi to warm up.
Of course he is. Tai Chi to warm up.
So, hello everybody, thank you for being here, thank you for being you on this occasion. So, we're going on a bit of a journey together this afternoon, and the speed will change. It's going to start off a little bit slow, and I thought I'd like to read you something, and this is about my the beginning of my career, I guess, after I left college. And one little footnote, when it's mentioned here, is called Acme Housing, something that doesn't really exist anymore, and it was sort of set up in East London before East London was fashionable. Artists were given derelict houses to live in, and we refurbished them ourselves, and that way we got a studio. So when I talk about Acme Housing, that's what that is. Now Acme just runs studios, and they still do that. They were a couple of graduates of fine art from Reading, and they set that up in the 1970s, actually. Okay, so I'm going to start reading now. And as we go on this afternoon, don't feel you have to follow everything, because you don't need to. Just kind of grasp what you want to grasp in this. Okay, so I'm going to start reading now. This is a narrative. It traces a line or a plane in a certain way for today. One line may be as good as another, and the main point is that this is the only one that matters right now on this floor under these lights. The questioning of the surface, the base, the template, the ground, goes through the paper to the desk underneath. You sit at the desk, you sit. Sitting is the obvious position. At the desk that you made in the Slade's woodwork shop using the electric bandsaw. The desk is modular, 4 sides of an open cube, so you're already sitting subsumed by a sculptural form in the constructivist tradition. The top support surface is a square of half-inch blockboard not screwed down, lifted off. It could be slid off at any time and become part of a work or works. You sit here in Willow Street, London EC1, behind the awkward Old Street monument, and you make drawings, taking paper slowly from a pile of cast-offs from a friend's printing works. The individual sheets feel fine, firm with a slight sheen, gently secure and other. But decades later, they emit oily deposits, while the occasional cartridge paper you reluctantly used stands firm. It's in process, and you're in process. You fall asleep at the desk most days. You don't understand this, but you grow to accept it and rationalize it as an antidote to the 3 days a week you spend trying to control teenagers at Woodbury Down Comprehensive School in Hackney, where the head of art is a former policeman. Respect, Mr. Palmer, disciplined man, respect. And he's a self-taught draftsman, but innocuous figurative poster paint compositions that the kids admire hugely. Can you do mine, Mr. Palmer? Cool, look, Mr. Palmer done that for me. Look at that. He grows geraniums in small pots in the store cupboard. The acrid smell surprises you when you open the door and fumble for materials, recalling with a shudder your life as an art student 18 months earlier in an art school where you were obsessed with breaking boundaries between video, drawing, sculpture, and photography. And your MA graduation work is hovering there as you sit at your desk producing the drawings, which are in part randomly generated, representing early computer-generated art. You are your own machine. And the shift comes when the job shifts and the housing shifts. You're allocated an Acme house in Bow, a derelict terraced house opposite the gasworks, where the upstairs eventually becomes a studio. Then, supported by documentation of your MA show, you're giving your first solo show at the Acme Gallery. And when your exhibition's on, they need invigilators, so you start working there as well. You call your exhibition Breaking Down, and your drawings find a place, this time on larger cartridge paper. These are the survivors from the nursery. You continue working at the gallery, and your interest in performance takes a new turn as you sample the scene. So at 2B Butler's Wharf, a new performance venue, your drawings are revisited, projected in negative onto a rough wooden structure that is also derived from them. You call it line flying. There it is. And your liveness in the work, your physicality, empowers you unexpectedly. You're not falling asleep at the table desk anymore. A couple of years later, an opportunity arises to slide off the table and onto the floor, the parallel underfoot surface. You take the train to Carlisle. That's where the floor is. It's parquet, and the black bitumen adhesive, impeccably designed to hold firm, is now cracking underneath in brittle fragments. The impact of accumulated dust lies heavy in the crevices and gaps between the thick rectangular blocks. See what you find if you look underneath. Or better not, get someone else in to do it. Get the workmen in, the ones who are used to the job, so hardened and toughened. So hardened and toughened they refuse to wear face masks for fear of being tarred with effeminacy. Breathing in dust and shit makes a man of me. It's already giving way in places, that's why it needs replacing. Especially if this is now a low-budget media studio, home to unwieldy former television cameras that frequently need to glide on tripod wheels for smooth shots. Where the surface is broken, the wheels jump. The camera judders and the picture shakes. This floor has to go. Or is it a floor? It's an ecosystem, a memory bank, a reservoir of human impact. Stand on it, lie on it, rely on it, wipe it, smell it, ignore it. Having outlived so many of its users and resurfacings, there's an implicit revenge contained in its impasse. They call it refurbishment. You gradually draw it into submission and disintegration, right for your particular camera and action. You lift a single loose wooden brick block. It emerges easily at one end, inclined at an angle. underside or the top edge of its neighbour in lip contact. It's that easy. The raised block casts a sharp, prismatic shadow under the strong lights. It reveals a presence, a persona, and the floor is now a space of potential. Lift one, you can lift more. The floor is in takeoff and no longer a bland underfoot surface. It's what it always was, an assemblage of oak slabs clustered together for support and adhesion. Separate one from the crowd, and they all want to follow. thing to do in terms of my early career, I guess. It was helpful. And that's not the original edit. I re-edited it quite recently with the help of my collaborator, Tania Koswycz. So now we're moving on to, I guess, the idea of becoming other. And I'm going to quickly show you some things. So becoming other for me is not acting, it's sort of inhabiting. And this person, David Savage, was a businessman who wanted to help Mrs. Thatcher. And I think his time has come again. He had a campaign throughout the city of Cambridge where this was linked to an artist residency. And for the period of 2 weeks, I didn't reveal my real name, I was David Savage.
Quite a few changes in British society have been happening. Ones which I'm sure we'll welcome. Change of values. Money is a bit more important than it was, isn't it? Ha-ha, money. Like quite a few of you, the shareholders, aren't you? Yes, the shares. Now, there's an example. Privatisation. Do you know even education's being privatised? There's money to be made out there. Marvellous. Absolutely marvellous.
Okay. So Max Hombre was quite different. Here he is. Max is invited to another town, Colchester, to kind of celebrate the arts in Colchester. So this is a much more kind of engaging, less confrontative persona. And I still can't remember where the gold helmet came from. My ambition was that after a week of being Max Hombre, I would walk down the high street in Colchester and teenagers would stop me and say, "Hi Max, how's it going?" And that did actually happen towards the end of that week. So I made lots of visits to all kinds of places, old people's homes, schools, the market. Here's my poster. My Kenzo jacket, which I've still got. It's pretty hopeless, really. Talking about sausages, meeting people, giving out my publicity material. There's the helmet again. So that was Max Hombre in Colchester. So now we're moving on to creating other without intending to. And Tania Koswycz is a complex story, so I'm going to go quickly on this because I could speak for an hour about Tania, and there's other things I'd like to share with you today because I haven't been to Sheffield for a long time, haven't met you before, and I'd like to give you a bit more variety, just talking about Tania, which she would object to, I have to tell you this. So Tania came about because again, in Colchester, I had an exhibition. Let's use the roving light for a second. I had an exhibition that was about explaining what artists do to ordinary people, basically. So I had this idea of creating a studio of 4 artists who would all be fictitious. One would be a printmaker painter, one would be a sculptor, one would be a film video artist, and the 4th one would be like a conceptual artist. And that 4th one was called Tania Koswycz. And I thought I would borrow work from local artists and show it. I didn't really think it through though, because if I did that, I'd have to credit those artists. And so fictitious names would be lost. So in the end, I had to make all the work myself of all the artists, which so it turned into a much bigger project. But the strange thing about Tania's work was that I found her work really easy to make. I will go back to that, yeah. I'll show you in a minute. So Tania's work, for some reason, was easier to make than my own work, and I didn't really understand this. And I thought, well, perhaps I'll have a career as Tania, you know, as artists do now, more than they did when I did this. But yeah, so I'll have a show in Hackney of Tania Koswycz's work. I won't say it's really me. Let's see how that goes. But it wasn't what was interesting to me. What was interesting was actually something about her. And something about her and me, obviously, because her work was easy to make than mine. So I tried talking to her, like I'm talking to you now, and that didn't work. I did that on video, that was all that really didn't work at all. So then one day I just wrote to her. I started writing to Tania, and immediately she had a reply. And I suppose that was what began it, really. So Tania had a presence through the written word. So then, as part of a sort of exercise in tracking one's process, I had these 4 questions I was asking while I was doing a residency in Australia. So there was practicals and methods, intuitions and insights, free flow, which is just write anything, which is always my favourite, and then Tania's view. So I was beginning to see her as a presence. And then on this date, on the 16th of October, this is the first time we actually had a dialogue, which I found strangely scary to do and risky. So we had a bit of a spat, really. She was annoyed that I'd asked someone else to be her in a performance I was going to do in Perth, I think it was. And she says stuff like, well, does she look like me? How can you get someone else to be me? Because I'm fictitious, you know, you can't get anyone, I am me, although you can't see me. So we had a bit of an argument, and this sort of started something in my mind that, well anyway, I'll come back to that. This is the stuff, is this her work that was so easy to make? And the titles came very easily too, so this piece, Expect No Mercy from the Egg Woman, was a dress with Cadbury's cream eggs ironed onto it and then sealed with PVA, which she borrowed from one of the other fictitious artists. And this is a piece in Australia called Lighten Up. Another version of Lighten Up in Australia. And so this led on to a project called Talking to Tania, where we had these web-based dialogues. And it had a bit of funding for this, and gradually it became international. So I would be talking to Tania all over the world, really. In Bangkok, this is in Greece, in America. And just to see what would happen, and would I behave differently for having a dialogue with her. And it did lead to things that I wouldn't normally have done. As another dialogue in Bangkok here, yeah. If you're interested in this, they're all online. And that eventually led to this book, a book of our dialogues called Cream Pages, which I've got here. And its look and feel is based on the Penguin Great Ideas series. And just by coincidence, the man who designed this, Phil Baines, did actually design the Penguin Great Ideas series. It's got a very nice rebossed cover, which you can have a look at later if you want. And here's the contents. These are the dialogues kind of transcribed with other ones. And they've been changed a bit. You know, obviously it was made into a book, spent a long time reworking them. And the thing about Tania was that the book was great, she was really happy with that, but she kept saying to me it wasn't enough, Richard. I want more profile in your practice, basically. I want more profile in your work. She wanted to be seen as an equal collaborator, so that led to an exhibition which toured the UK called The Manifestation. This is an early version of that. These are our dialogues on postcards. I'm speaking on one and she's speaking on the next. This is in Stroud. And then we had a much bigger show in London at Cafe Gallery Projects. And you can imagine the debate we had about whose name would go first on the publicity. In this instance, she won out because alphabetically her name comes before mine. And this is some elements from the show. This is the table. All these elements came through our dialogues, so they became sort of emerging themes. One is called the table project, and the radiant curve. There's a radiant curve, there's a dialogue. So there's three elements here. This is the dialogue, much more formally presented. Back to the table. This is the radiant curve with the projection from something called White on White, which is a number of our themes. This is one of the images from White on White, where it's painting out graffiti in Penzance. This is another theme called the perfect image. And gradually the word came in. This is the word, what she wanted said about her on this occasion. It's the stumbling block, which we've never fully resolved. It's quite hard to resolve stumbling blocks. And this image tells you a little bit about the video that became the table that she re-edited. The video was from a work I did in Norway a year or so, a few years before, and was never quite happy with how it was edited, but she could see a relevance of the table coming into this show. And we'll perhaps look at a bit of that now. This is her re-edit. Well, we're not getting any sound, so I won't show very much of this. But this was all filmed live when I was working as a waiter in a cafe. Perhaps I should have said that. But my role was a waiter artist, so I was an artist, also a waiter, and some people knew about this and some people didn't. I hadn't worked as a waiter before, but as part of this role, I was able to kind of film as I went along, quiet moments, interact with people, obviously. There was a day when I became a travelling waiter because there was a leak in the roof. Yeah, this is when I was a travelling waiter. I would just turn up and start waiting tables anywhere, unannounced. Cinema cafe where there are actually no customers, as you can see at this time. But the kind of whole issue of the table as a space, I still find completely intriguing. The simple nature of the table space and, you know, what happens in that space with the fly or glass. Okay, we'll move on. I think this is slightly out of sequence. We're going to show you this. This was another version of the manifestation in Stroud. This is Tania's, more of Tania's word here. So then there should have been this side and this one. So this is me with my brother in our garden in Bristol, Middlesex. I'm the little one. And my brother lives in Australia. He's still into model aeroplanes, still talks about them now. And he came over to England to visit as a family, doesn't come back very often, a few years ago. And my cousin lives very close to this house, where he used to rent a little flat when he lived in London. I used to visit him here because I was quite unhappy at home as a teenager. I used to go and stay with him, stay with my big brother who lived in this fancy house. And it was just a little flat he had. But you can imagine, as a schoolboy, going to stay here was really something. Then there was a big fire, and it took a long time to rebuild it. It's right by the River Thames. But around that time, my cousin sort of looked at our family tree. You know, everybody can do this, of course. But she discovered that when my brother was here, she brought this out, the family tree. We thought we were kind of from Ipswich, but we were actually from Colchester, where I'd done loads of work, so it's all a bit strange, really. So I got quite interested in this woman, Phoebe, who's my great-grandmother. So I'm down here somewhere. They were my parents. No, that's my dad, yeah. That's my grandpa, that's my great-grandpa, that's my great-great-grandmother. And this is her mum and dad. But if you look here, well, anyway, it's clear that he was illegitimate, and it was all kind of concealed. So my surname comes through a woman, not through a man, which I really liked, that fact. That, you know, things are often concealed, even today. Illegitimate births happen and it's all concealed. So, yeah, I got my surname, which I quite liked, quite an unusual surname, through a woman. And then there was this thing with Colchester, which I was a bit baffled by. You know, I've done all this work in Colchester since '96. I'm still doing a project there now. And actually, my ancestors are from there. So it's just a coincidence. But it's kind of interesting. Well, was it? I don't know. I mean, it's nothing. It's absolutely nothing, is it? Nothing at all. It's nothing. It's just nothing. It's absolutely nothing, so we'll just forget it. But I'm going to talk about time. There's nothing. It's a tiny bit of, just weird slightly. Because I remember, you know, this guy in Colchester, and me with a gold hat, talking to him, and then the new building in Colchester, the new first site, which then was being built, has this gold top to it. There was absolutely no connection at all. But, you know, it's known as the gold banana. There it is. And my family lived just at the back here. My great, they were just there, next to it. That was enough. But the other funny thing was that a couple of years before that, I had a woman called Phoebe. Well, there were two Phoebes, right? There was Phoebe Davies, who's now quite emerging as a London artist, who was then a student of mine at Wimbledon, and another Phoebe who was a student I was working with in Oxford, at Oxford Brookes. And I said to Phoebe, one of the Phoebes, you know, do you want to come and meet me? Because she was doing her placement with me. And I sent the email to the wrong Phoebe. I was really embarrassed, you know. So I sent this apologetic email saying, hello Phoebe, humble apologies, I mixed you up. Can't believe I know two Phoebes. It's such a great name. Not knowing that my great-great-grandmother was called Phoebe. Which of course is nothing. And here's the street where they lived, St Paul's Street in Colchester. It was quite a famous street. Now it's a bit rubbish. It's got a business postcard on the street. And I did a lot of research into who was dealing in that street when my great-great-great-grandparents were there. So this is the kind of names of the Ichabod Hag, the clothes dealer. William Griffin, there's still a William and Griffin's department store in Colchester. I really like Dakin Bear, the butcher. Just not the name in a way. Isaac Lingwood was actually, I guess, the landlord of the little house that my ancestors lived in, and that's my great-great-great-great-grandfather, and there's Phoebe. And I got a tiny bit obsessed with it. I thought, well, who is Phoebe? It's a really unusual name. I'm going to Google Phoebe on the Ancestral website. What's going to come up? Well, these are the street numbers. This is who's there today. It's Oswald Street. It's a bit more. It's got a bit down on its luck. It's gone up a bit in the last month or two. Southern Fried Chicken, Henry B's doing very well, and the prom shop. There's more bridal gowns than you can imagine in the street now. And I quite like this sign here, cash reward. Lost large red parrot answers to Aussie. That's the street today. And that's the corner. And that's Phoebe Davies falling. And I asked Phoebe to fall in a way to revisit my great-great-grandmother's fall, because as a fallen woman, she gave birth to an illegitimate child. So it was a very strange and quite meaningful thing to do on the street where this is probably where the house was. We weren't trying to trick people. It was just wanting to do this, kind of. Just do it, you know, just do it. Phoebe's falling, you know, Phoebe's falling. And we looked at these and we found the best one and we put it on a loop. And then later I went back and looked again at the different falls. And then this one seemed very significant, the next one. I think it's the next one. No, that's the one we used again. That's the loop, so that's a repeat. It's the next one. You've already seen this one. So it's not the best fall. It's not a particularly great fall, which is why we didn't use it. And the lady says, "You're right, love." But then look who walks into shot. You know, given that this was about a fallen woman, what an amazing thing for a pregnant lady to walk past at that moment, which we completely missed. So then looking at Phoebe Layzell in the Ancestry website, remarkably she came up in London. There's only one with that spelling. And she's in a house with these other people I've never heard of. Buckingham Street, never heard of Buckingham Street. There she is. It says that she's a visitor, that's what that says, visitor. And so I wondered, you know, what was she doing there? This woman from Colchester who hadn't a legitimate child, and you know, you think the worst, really. But actually, she was visiting someone she later married. I forget who it is now. He's there. This guy, she marries him. There's the street, gone straight down to the Thames. Fantastic street. That was the building, but somehow it disappeared. But you can see it's really historic. There it is again. There it is there, back on the street. These stairs are still there. It would have looked like that. But when I looked again at that list, and it said William Burgess, architect, who I'd never heard of really. It turns out he was a really famous architect. And so I started reading about him. He was high Gothic. He designed a new art school for India, I think for Bombay. It was never built, extraordinary building. And he built Tower House, which is in Kensington. He built that for himself. And he didn't have long in there before he died there. But that house is now owned by rock legend Jimmy Page. I'm just pausing because we've lost the sound, but never mind. There was a rift there. And recently in the news, this house in the news in the last month, because Jimmy has a new neighbour, who is none other than Robbie. And Robbie wants to do some conversions that are not what he wants. He's worried about his neighbour. So it's a big story in the Standard. There it is. You can imagine how she enjoyed writing this story. To be fair to Jimmy, he does keep it like a museum, I think. But he won't let anyone see it. I tried to be in, but he won't let anyone see it. I got quite obsessed with William Burgess because of the thought of my little great-great-great-granny bumping into him on the stairs in this house. This celebrated architect, he was quite extraordinary, very eccentric, feels a bit like part of my family, really, as does Dutton Cook. So Dutton Cook's the neighbour. So speaking of journalism, he was a journalist. He wrote for the Belgravia magazine and wrote about theatre mainly. Wrote this piece called Suit the Action to the Word, about the appropriateness of action to gesture. And he's writing about here about someone called Thomas McBreedy, who was a famous actor, describes the means he adopted to coerce his limbs to perfect stillness the while he exhibited the wildest emotions of passion. He would lie on the floor or stand straight against a wall or tie bandages about his arms, and while so pinioned or restricted, he would recite the most violent passages of Othello, Lear, Hamlet, Macbeth, or whatever would require most energy and emotion. He would speak the most passionate bursts of rage under the supposed constraint of whispering them in the ear of him or her to whom they were addressed, thus keeping both voice and gesture in subjection to the real impulse of the feeling. So this is a technique that he devised for restricting movement to gesture. Okay. So the town of Colchester, the transport of Colchester, the theatre. Reclaim that space. This was Colchester Theatre. This building was a large theatre in Colchester, now converted into a bus garage. And I'm reclaiming that space here. Pinioned arms, speaking in a very loud voice, but restrained, about jealousy. And there is McBreedy, smouldering. So, just bear with me 1 second. Okay, that's fine. So I got a bit fast there, and started a bit slower, and I stopped reading, and we went from some of my early work to, I guess the floor was about, the thing I didn't tell you about the floor was that was a consolation prize for not getting a residency. So I went to the interview for this potential residency and really wanted it. It was a real kind of potential break for me, a really good opportunity. And I got the phone call that evening, which you get often when you have an interview, something they phone me that evening, and they said, "Oh, hi, you haven't got it, but do you want to come do something with our floor?" And I thought, yeah, right. What do you say? Thanks for nothing. But actually, I said yes, and it turned out. So I mean, that video then helped me get a video residency. So I'm a believer, I guess, in taking opportunities, even if they don't feel like they're going to work out. And then we went to being a waiter somewhere in there, which was one of my favourite things that I've done out in the world, because it was able to hover between being kind of reflective and also very interactive with people. So, yeah. It was very, very surreal. The whole experience was very strange. And being recognised in the street, I was, yeah, you're that, because it wasn't a very big place. And keeping the daily journal, so that was posted. Before blogging really happened, that was posted online. At the end of every day I wrote about it. And then it was translated into Norwegian and put in the daily paper. So people were reading about it in the paper the next day. And that's how it sort of gained momentum. And I suppose I'll talk to you about Tania and Phoebe, because they've both been important women to me. And I value having strong relationships with women who I haven't really known, either of them. Tania, of course, isn't real, but is very real, because she's part of me. So I'm accessing some part of myself by having these dialogues with her. And occasionally, men, when I talk about this, men say, they sort of give them that look and they say, so Richard, you know, you're having a relationship with Tania. And I just got really irritated by this. So that's when she began a gay relationship with a woman called Bridget on the BBC. Recently, Tania and I have been talking about, it's partly to do with the fact that Marvin Gaye Chetwynd keeps changing her name from Spartacus to whatever she was before Spartacus. And it sort of gave her the idea to change her name. So she's now just called Peru. Just Peru. And I do talk to Peru regularly in the written form. So, again, you know, she's not a voice in my head. I'm very clear about that. It's a way of accessing some aspect of my own creative self. You could say it's like a muse or something like that. And then we went on to Phoebe, who I think, I know it's a bit like that kind of TV show, you know, Who Do You Think You Are, which I don't really watch. But I think to have like a creator, like to use one's past in a creative way and to go off on these kind of research journeys I've been on, looking for Tower House, studying William Burgess and Edward Dutton Cook, thinking about the reality, as I've already said, of my she's probably a very tiny woman, this little woman, imagining her kind of bumping into these relatively distinguished people of their day. Of course, they were men, because the women were not documented. But I wanted to document Phoebe for that very reason, because she would be lost. So, you know, when you do look at cultural history, it's an obvious thing to say, but you don't see many women documented. But that, I guess, was part of it too. And then that bit of London, you know, when I took a year out doing BA to MA, I had a job where I was like a messenger boy, and I used to walk over Hungerford Bridge, which is the bridge that leads from the South Bank to Buckingham Street. And I used to have this funny feeling, and of course, it may have anything to do with it, but it feels sort of special to me that she lived in Buckingham Street and around the Strand, and she got married to Thomas in St Martin's in the Fields. It's a little bit of London where I feel something. So what I'm sort of been, you know, I've been playing with it a bit, but what I guess I'm saying is that I'm a believer in intuition and that being open to not just, I guess, that we all have amazing things in ourselves and in our families and in our past. So not everything has to be boom, boom, boom. It's okay to sort of see where things